You're watching BionicDance. Don't run on automatic, instead, please think.
Truth is, I don't make YouTube videos just because it's fun. It is fun. But I've also got a more noble purpose in mind. Let's do this. So I'd like you to meet a fellow who goes by the name Zealous Lemon. Says he's an atheist, and I have no reason to doubt it, but our side is not immune from criticism. Have a look.
I think that people lack open-mindedness. Now I'm talking about atheists specifically here, because they lack open-mindedness. I am an atheist myself. Well, I describe myself as that. Well, I don't know, but I mean, I don't believe in God. If that's the description for atheist, that's what I am. But I don't actively shoot down on religion and actively make fun of religion and actively just be horrible to religious people, which I think is something that, this is why people aren't atheists, because they see atheists as rude and obnoxious, which is just seems to be the majority of atheists. That's what they are, and it's something that I think doesn't need to happen, because you can give me all the statistics in the world. I know from my life that I have gone through life and I have known a lot of religious people, and I can't think of a single one who has been actively any of these things.
Well, okay, maybe you haven't, but that doesn't change the fact that there are a lot of religious people out there who are xenophobic, science-phobic, if there's a word for that, I don't know. But regardless, there are plenty of religious people out there for whom the real world is a terrifying place, a place to be avoided and even fought at all costs. And I have personally dealt with these people. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you're lucky. But let me ask you something. Are you LGBT? 'Cause lesbian over here, and I have plenty of other friends who fit those other letters, and we get a lot of shit from religious people. Do I need to point out all of these defensive marriage acts that are going around these days? I mean, think about it. Religion really likes to get in everyone else's business. I mean, do I have to point out how religion resisted things like genetic testing, genetic experimentation, to figure out how our world works, because they'd rather just fill God into the blanks? I mean, seriously, religion makes a nuisance of itself. And there's a reason I fight it. It's not just for the sake of it. It's not just to argue. My life is made worse by the presence, by the interference of religion. If religion could mind its own business, the way some people play Dungeons and Dragons or collect baseball cards or play video games or something, if it was just this quirk of personality people had, I could roll my eyes and go whatever. But that's not religion. Religion, I mean, come on, look at the Middle East. Look at the war in the Middle East, the one we're fighting there. You have to see how religion is at the heart of that particular conflict. Of course it is. It's at least a factor. Do I need to point to World War II, to the Nazis, concentration camps, the way they treated Jews? I mean, seriously, religion has been a menace in our world. So maybe it hasn't affected you personally, but that means you've been lucky. Doesn't mean that religion is not a menace or a nuisance in our world. Doesn't mean it shouldn't be fought.
Which are like racist, homophobic, all these kind of prejudices. I don't know what the word is, but
prejudices.
That these kinds of prejudiced, they are not. Okay, but one thing that I can say is atheists have one prejudice, and that is that religion has these prejudices.
Prejudices, and religion does have them. We have ample proof of it. Because you personally haven't experienced it doesn't make it not so. And it is so.
which I don't think is right, and I think people should be a lot more open-minded. And just because someone who is a big atheist out there, like Pat Condell on YouTube or Richard Dawkins, says that all these things are true, they're not true. You don't have to believe everything you hear.
Well, fortunately, I don't just have to go on hearsay. I have plenty of actual, genuine, real-world personal experience with this kind of thing. And the fact is that you're wrong. Religion does actually practice the kind of prejudices that we're talking about, even though you personally haven't experienced them. Consider yourself lucky, but that doesn't make it not so.
You don't have to be so black and white with your opinions. You can come somewhere in the middle where you want to be. It's for your mind to discover. It's not anything to do with any specific scene.
And honestly, I wish that were the case. I mean, I would be happy to mind my own business. I would be happy to never address religion ever again. I would love that. But it's kind of impossible if I want to live a harmonious life my way. I mean, honestly, if religion had its way, and if I stopped trying to mitigate the impact religion has on my life, I would be living a very different kind of life, one that would not be to my design, one that would not be my choice. And for my money, that's unacceptable. Sorry, but I mean, religion can have its way for its own people without any interference from me, provided that they will grant me the same courtesy. That's it. But religion doesn't do that. Just about every religion in the world, there's a few exceptions, but just about every religion in the world believes that they were given this entire universe by their deity, and that we all have to follow some fairly specific rules in their books. And those of us who say no kind of get the short end of the stick in this world. And like I say, that's unacceptable. This is my life. I'm going to live it my way so long as I'm not hurting other people. And I expect the same courtesy out of religion. So, no, it's not going to work the way you describe, where I'm just more open-minded and let religion get its way. It doesn't work like that, and it never will.
If you know what I mean, it's not like you have to be. This isn't high school. You don't have to be a goth or, you know, whatever they were anyway in high school. I can't remember, but you don't have to be in a specific scene. You can merge together, and that's kind of what adult life for me is about.
And while I am genuinely happy for you, no sarcasm, happy for you that your life is working out that way, it's not the truth. High school never ends. One of my favorite bands, Bowling for Soup, has a song called that, and the examples they give are the truth. I mean, high school doesn't truly end. And, I mean, if you don't believe me, try being homosexual when you're surrounded by religious people. Try being the only atheist when you're surrounded by religious people. And then tell me just how accepted you feel. Honestly, high school never ends, and what scene you're in does matter.
And it's kind of about I feel like that's what my opinions should be about. It's finding where my opinion lies on the spectrum, rather than following someone blindly just because they've come to you first, or they've come to you first and they're the ones who've come to you first and you've actually absorbed what they've said.
And you see, on this point at least, you and I are pretty much in agreement. I mean, the motto of my channel is what? Don't run on automatic, think. And that's what I really hope people will do, is to critically examine all of the data, all of the evidence, and come to a reasoned conclusion. And I'd love to believe that that conclusion would be atheism. I mean, I think that's where logic and reason and the evidence should lead us. But, I mean, if someone doesn't come to that conclusion, let's discuss it reasonably and rationally. Mind you, like I say, when religion makes a nuisance of itself, makes an interference of itself, that's when I start to get kind of on the fighting mad side. I mean, like I say, religion has made my life measurably worse. and I'm not even a participant. It's the way religion tends to get kind of interference happy, that I start to think that religion needs to be fought. That it's not merely something to be tolerated or just something to be, even pointed and laughed at, but actively fought because it's making my life actively worse. If religious people could mind their own damn business and just be religious over there, I might still not exactly approve, but I'd also be a hell of a lot less vocal. Just saying.
I know a lot of people start out, religious because they've been taught that as a child, and they get this atheist idea, and then they're like, okay, well, I'm an atheist now.
For myself, I was rather lucky. My parents were half-heartedly religious, and I was raised largely without religion. In fact, it was at my request that we spent a little time as Unitarians, because I was curious what the hell this religion thing everyone else was doing was. But we didn't really stick with it, and aside from, a few months I spent as a pantheist, which was, me just grafting a layer of special on top of the natural world, I've been an atheist my entire life, and it's been pretty easy, at least as far as being an atheist. Being an atheist for me is not about fighting against religion. It never was. I'd probably still fight against religion whether I was an atheist or not, as long as religious people continued to behave like complete selfish pricks. Just saying.
You only have to scratch the surface with some of these, big atheists, like, let's say, Pat Condell, and you realise he's part of, he's quite up in the party of UKIP in the UK, which is basically, it's like a softened version of BNP, which BNP is a horribly racist party in the UK, and he's a part of this, and you can hear him in his videos. There's an underlying, that I didn't think so originally. I used to be a big fan.
And of course, my experiences with Pat Condell kind of mirror yours. Okay, granted, you probably know more about UK politics than I ever will, but at the same time, I started noticing some of the more racially slanted elements of his talks. And while I agree with Pat on things like religion, after a while, I don't know if nationalism is the right word for it, but his politics really started to turn me off, and I also unsubscribed. So, we're kind of simpatico on some of this stuff. But at the same time, religion has still earned a lot of the verbal drubbing it gets from people. And I'm surprised you haven't realized that. I'm surprised you haven't noticed. And maybe it just hasn't affected you personally. I don't know. But for those of us that religion has been a nuisance to, well, it kind of makes a difference, and it kind of does drive some of our argumentation against religion, some of our vehemence, some of our thrust, some of the points we attack and how viciously. Religion has earned it. It's not like we're doing this just out of the blue to be jerkwads. No, it's not like that at all. If religion could have been nicer to us, we may never have started this so-called crusade against it. Just saying.
You have to find your own opinions, is what I'm trying to say here, and be open-minded. Whatever it is that someone has to say, be open-minded to what they are saying.
But see, that can be taken to an extreme. That can be taken to excess. I'm open-minded, sure, but not about everything. There are some ways in which you will find me inflexible, and one of those is trying to get me to believe in something without sufficient data to justify that belief, without sufficient evidence. Anyone who's watched my videos often enough, long enough, knows that my biggest problem with religion is faith, is the fact that you're supposed to believe without evidence. I'm just not down with that. And if you're telling me I have to be open-minded on the faith issue, well, no, not gonna happen. I'm sorry, just plain not gonna happen. I have limits. What's the saying? Be open-minded, but not so open-minded that your brain falls out? Well, this is an example of that. And if there aren't limits on your open-mindedness as well, as nice and PC as it sounds to be open-minded, there are limits. There have to be. Just saying.
Well, very few people are actually set in stone religious to the extent that the Bible says they should be. People aren't as sexist as they were. Definitely not. And this is all advanced in spite of religion, really.
And that's what we atheists are for. To make that kind of advancement. To argue against the bullshit that comes out of religion that makes other people's lives worse, that gets in other people's business. That's what some of us are here for. That's what some of us are here to do. To point out those errors in religion and to say, you really ought to knock that off because it's just not the case the way you think it is. Leave us the heck alone. We're not your enemy, no matter what that damn book says.
And I think the problem with atheism is that there's no advancement, and it's a very new concept, I guess, being atheist, even though a bit odd that it should be, but it is. And I think people should advance on atheism.
Except there's nowhere to go. I don't believe in a god. Big deal. That's all my atheism is. Where am I supposed to go with that? It's like saying, gosh, I'm not a baseball fan, or gosh, I'm not a Twilight fan, and thus I should build some sort of great society around that? Around the fact that I'm not into a sport played by various people and enjoyed by various other people? I should build a world around not being into moronic, Mormon, sparkly vampires? Really? 'Cause that's what you're saying I should do with my atheism. My fighting against religion is not motivated by my lack of a belief in a god. Okay, granted, I do wish other people would focus a bit more on the logic and the reason and the evidence, sure. But even that is tangential to the not believing in God part. One is a symptom of the other, sure. But the main reason I fight against religion is because of the way religion interferes in my world. I don't fight against religion because I don't believe in a god. I fight against religion because religious people often behave like jerks. That's it. Seriously, if religion could mind its own business, if religious people could back off, I really wouldn't have much to say, and my YouTube channel would be largely about my animation instead. Just saying.
I could be wrong, and I probably am wrong, and I might look on this video in years' time, years down the line, and think, what an idiot.
No comment. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think. Please take the time to rate this video. And hey, if you dig what I do, subscribe. And please visit my Zazzle store, where you'll find all kinds of BionicDance merchandise. And remember, if it can't be in your hand, it's all in your head.